The room was silent, except for the sharp laughter that sliced through the air. Sarah stood frozen in the middle of the sleek, glass-walled conference room, her hands trembling as she clutched her worn-out purse. The three interviewers, two men and a woman, sat behind a long table, their faces twisted with amusement. The woman, Miss Carter, leaned forward, her perfectly manicured nails tapping the table as she smirked. "You thought you could work here," Miss Carter said, her voice dripping with mockery. "Look at you. That dress looks like it's from a thrift store, and your resume? It's a joke. No experience, no skills, nothing. Why are you even here, wasting our time?" Sarah's cheeks burned. Her simple blue dress, the one she'd spent hours ironing the night before, suddenly felt like a rag. The room seemed to shrink, the glass walls closing in as the other two interviewers chuckled. One of them, Mr. Hayes, a man with a shiny bald head and a smug grin, waved her resume in the air like it was trash. "Maybe she thought this was a charity," Mr. Hayes said, laughing so hard he slapped the table. "What's next? You'll tell us you're secretly a genius or something?" The third interviewer, Mr. Lang, didn't laugh. He just stared at Sarah with cold eyes, his pen tapping impatiently. "Get out," he said flatly. "You're embarrassing yourself." Sarah opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. Her heart pounded, and tears stung her eyes. But she refused to let them fall. She wanted to tell them she wasn't a nobody, that she had dreams, that she'd worked hard to get here. But the words stuck in her throat like a lump of clay. "Ms. Carter stood up, pointing to the door. "Leave now," she said, her voice sharp as a knife. "We don't need people like you here." Sarah's legs felt like jelly, but she forced herself to move. She grabbed her purse tightly and walked toward the door, her worn-out shoes clicking softly on the polished floor. The laughter followed her, echoing in her ears. Just as she reached the door, Ms. Carter called out one last time. "Oh, and don't come back, sweetheart. This is Pinnacle Industries, not a place for people like you." The door slammed shut behind Sarah, and she stood in the hallway alone. Her heart raced, and her hands shook so hard she nearly dropped her purse. But then her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, her fingers fumbling, and saw a text from her husband, James. "How'd it go, love? You got this." Sarah stared at the message, her chest tightening. How could she tell him? How could she explain that she'd been humiliated, mocked, and thrown out like garbage? And then a thought hit her like a lightning bolt, something that made her breath catch in her throat. What would happen when they found out who her husband was? What would they do when they learned that Sarah, the simple woman they'd just laughed out of the room, was married to James Bennett, the CEO of Pinnacle Industries? The hallway felt colder now, and Sarah's mind raced. She wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. But what came next? Would she tell James? Would she fight back? Or would something even bigger happen to turn this moment upside down? The answer was coming, and it was going to shake the whole company to its core. Build up the day before. The morning before the interview, Sarah woke up early, her stomach twisting with nerves. She sat at the small kitchen table in their cozy apartment, sipping tea from a chipped mug. The apartment wasn't fancy-no marble counters or chandeliers like the ones at Pinnacle Industries headquarters, but it was home, filled with love and warmth. Sarah loved her life with James, even if it was simple. She didn't need fancy things. She just wanted to prove herself, to show the world she was more than just James's wife. James walked into the kitchen, his tie loose around his neck. He was tall, with kind eyes and a smile that made Sarah's heart skip. He was the CEO of Pinnacle Industries, a huge tech company that made everything from phones to self-driving cars. But at home, he was just Jamesher James, who loved her silly jokes and burned toast every Saturday. "You ready for tomorrow?" he asked, kissing her forehead. Sarah nodded, but her smile was shaky. "I think so. I want to do this on my own, you know. I don't want anyone to know I'm your wife. I want them to pick me because I'm me." James grinned. "You're gonna blow them away, Sarah. You're smart, kind, and tougher than anyone I know. They'd be lucky to have you." Sarah laughed, but inside, she wasn't so sure. She'd never worked in a big company before. She'd spent years raising her younger siblings after their parents passed away, working odd jobs to pay the bills. She'd taught herself how to code from free online classes, staying up late after everyone else was asleep. When she saw the job posting for a junior programmer at Pinnacle, she felt a spark of hope. This was her chance to start fresh, to build something for herself. But there was a catch. Sarah didn't want anyone to know she was married to James. Not yet. She'd seen how people treated her differently. When they found out, suddenly fake, suddenly too nice. She wanted to earn this job fair and square. So, she applied under her maiden name, Sarah Miller, and left out any hint of her connection to James. Even James agreed to keep it a secret, though he warned her that Pinnacle's hiring team could be tough. "They're picky," he said, stirring sugar into his coffee. "But you've got this. Just be yourself." Sarah spent the rest of the day preparing. She practiced answering interview questions in front of the mirror, her voice wobbling at first, but getting stronger. She polished her resume, even though it wasn't fancy, just a list of her online courses and a few small coding projects she'd done for fun. She picked out her best dress, a simple blue one she'd bought on sale. It wasn't much, but it made her feel confident. By bedtime, she was nervous but ready. She fell asleep, dreaming of walking into Pinnacle Industries, head held high, ready to show the world what she could do. The morning of the interview. The next morning, Sarah arrived at Pinnacle Industries headquarters, a towering glass building that gleamed in the sunlight. She felt tiny standing in front of it, like a mouse staring up at a mountain. The lobby was even more intimidating: marble floors, a giant chandelier, and people in sharp suits rushing around. Sarah smoothed her dress and took a deep breath. "You can do this," she told herself. "Just be yourself." The receptionist, a young woman with a tight bun, barely looked up when Sarah gave her name. "Elevator to the 10th floor," she said, pointing without smiling. Sarah thanked her and stepped into the elevator, her heart thumping. The ride felt like forever, each ding of the floors making her stomach twist tighter. When she reached the 10th floor, a man in a gray suit led her to the conference room. "They're waiting," he said, his voice flat. Sarah nodded and stepped inside, clutching her purse like a lifeline. The 3 interviewers sat behind a long table, their faces unreadable. Ms. Carter, the woman with the sharp nails, glanced at Sarah's dress and raised an eyebrow. Mr. Hayes, the bald man, flipped through her resume with a frown. Mr. Lang, the quiet one, just stared. "Sit," Miss Carter said, pointing to a chair in the middle of the room. Sarah sat, her hands folded tightly in her lap. The interview began, and at first, it seemed okay. They asked about her coding projects, and Sarah answered confidently, explaining how she'd built a small app to help her siblings keep track of their chores. Ms. Carter smirked but didn't say anything. Mr. Hayes scribbled notes, his pen scratching loudly. Then things changed. Ms. Carter leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "So, Ms. Miller," she said, her voice sugary but mean, "you don't have a college degree. You've never worked in tech. And your experience is, what? Playing around on free websites? Why do you think you belong here?" Sarah's mouth went dry. She tried to explain how she'd taught herself, how she loved solving problems, how she wanted to learn. But Ms. Carter cut her off. "This isn't a playground," she snapped. "Pinnacle is for the best, not for hobbyists." Mr. Hayes jumped in, his grin wide. "I mean, come on. Did you think you could just walk in here and get a job? What's next? You'll tell us you know the CEO or something." He laughed, and Ms. Carter joined in, their voices bouncing off the glass walls. Sarah's face burned. She wanted to fight back, to tell them they were wrong, but her voice wouldn't work. Mr. Lang, the quiet one, finally spoke. "Enough," he said, his voice cold. "You're wasting our time. Leave." And that's when it happened, the moment that would change everything. Sarah stood, her legs shaky, and walked to the door. The laughter followed her, loud and cruel. Ms. Carter's final words. "This is Pinnacle Industries, not a place for people like you," rang in her ears as the door slammed shut. The cliffhanger Sarah stood in the hallway, her phone buzzing in her hand. James's text glowed on the screen. "How'd it go, love? You got this." Her heart pounded. She could text him back right now. Tell him everything, how they'd mocked her, how they'd thrown her out. She could tell him who she was, and watch the whole interview team squirm when they learned the truth. Or she could do something else, something bigger, something that would make them regret every word they'd said. But what? Sarah's mind raced, her fingers hovering over the phone. She wasn't just a simple woman. She was Sarah Miller, and she was going to fight back. But how? And what would happen when Pinnacle Industries realized they just humiliated the CEO's wife? The hallway was silent, but the air felt heavy with possibility. Something big was coming, something that would turn this moment upside down. And Sarah was ready to make it happen. Sarah stood in the hallway, her phone trembling in her hand as James's text glowed on the screen. "How'd it go, love? You got this." Her heart pounded like a drum, each beat echoing the laughter from the conference room. She could still hear Ms. Carter's sharp voice, Mr. Hayes's mocking chuckle, and Mr. Lang's cold command to leave. Her cheeks burned with shame, but something else was growing inside her, a tiny spark of defiance. She wasn't going to let them win. Not like this. She took a deep breath and slipped her phone back into her purse without replying to James. If she told him now, he'd be furious. He might storm down to the 10th floor, fire the whole interview team, and make everything right. But that's not what Sarah wanted. She didn't want to be saved. She wanted to prove herself, not as the CEO's wife, but as Sarah Miller, the woman who'd fought for everything she had. She straightened her shoulders, smoothed her simple blue dress, and made a decision. She wasn't leaving Pinnacle Industries yet, not until she showed them who she really was. But how? Her mind raced as she walked down the sleek hallway, her shoes clicking softly on the marble floor. The glass walls reflected her small figure in a cheap dress, clutching a worn purse. She didn't look like someone who belonged in this shiny, high-tech world. But looks didn't matter. She had something they didn't expect: grit. And she was going to use it. The plan takes shape. Sarah found a quiet corner in the lobby, near a potted plant that looked as out of place as she felt. She sat on a bench, her hands still shaking, and pulled out a small notebook from her purse. It was her idea book, filled with scribbles from late-night coding sessions and dreams of building something amazing. She flipped to a blank page and started writing. Step 1. Stay calm. Step 2. Show them you're not a nobody. But what came next? She didn't know yet, but she felt a fire growing inside her. She wasn't done with Pinnacle Industries. As she sat there, a young woman in a navy blazer walked by, carrying a stack of folders. She glanced at Sarah, her eyes curious but kind. "You okay?" the woman asked, pausing. Sarah hesitated. She wasn't used to strangers being nice, especially not here. "I'm fine," she said softly, forcing a smile. "Just thinking." The woman nodded, her badge glinting in the light. It read, "Lila, intern." "This place can be intense," Lila said. "I've only been here a month, and I already feel like I'm drowning half the time. You here for an interview?" Sarah nodded, her throat tight. "Yeah, it didn't go so well." Lila winced. "Ouch. Who'd you get? Carter's team?" Sarah's eyes widened. "How'd you know?" Lila laughed, but it wasn't mean like the interviewers. "Ms. Carter's got a reputation. She's tough, and not in a good way. Thinks she's the queen of Pinnacle. Hayes and Lang aren't much better. Don't let them get to you, okay? They're just gatekeepers who love feeling powerful." Sarah felt a tiny bit of relief. Maybe she wasn't the only one who thought they were awful. "Thanks," she said. I really wanted this job." Lila glanced at her watch and sighed. "I gotta run. But hey, don't give up. Pinnacle's huge. There's always another way in." She gave Sarah a quick smile and hurried off, her folders wobbling in her arms. Sarah watched her go, Lila's words echoing in her head. Another way in. That was it. She didn't need Miss Carter's approval. She didn't need their fancy table or their smug laughs. She could find her own way to show Pinnacle what she was made of. But how? She tapped her pen against her notebook, her mind buzzing. Then it hit her. The job posting had mentioned a company-wide coding challenger contest, open to anyone, even people who hadn't been hired yet. The winner would get a chance to present their project to the executive team, including the CEO. Sarah's heart skipped. That was her way in. If she could win the challenge, she could prove herself to everyone, not just the interviewers, but the whole company. And maybe, just maybe, Miss Carter and her team would eat their words. The high. A bold move. Sarah stood up, her legs steadier now. She walked to the lobby's information desk, where a digital screen displayed upcoming events at Pinnacle. There it was. Pinnacle Innovation Challenge. Submit your code by Friday. Today was Tuesday. That gave her 3 days to create something amazing. She didn't have much time, but she had determination and her idea book. She left the building and headed to a nearby coffee shop, her mind racing with ideas. The shop was small and cozy, with mismatched chairs and the smell of fresh coffee. Sarah ordered a tea, found a corner table, and opened her notebook. She started sketching out a plan for her project. A simple app that could help Pinnacle's employees manage their tasks more efficiently. It wasn't flashy, but it was practical, and she knew she could make it work. She'd use the coding skills she'd taught herself, the ones Miss Carter had laughed at. As she worked, her phone buzzed again. Another text from James. "Haven't heard from you. Everything okay?" Sarah's heart twinged. She wanted to tell him everything, but she couldn't. Not yet. If she told him now, he'd want to fix it, and this was her fight. She typed a quick reply. "I'm okay. Just busy. Talk later?" She hit send and turned her phone face down, focusing on her notebook. Hours passed as Sarah scribbled code and ideas, her tea growing cold. She felt alive, like she was building something real. But doubt crept in too. What if her app wasn't good enough? What if Ms. Carter was right and she was just a nobody pretending to be something more? She pushed the thoughts away. She wasn't doing this for Miss Carter. She was doing it for herself. By evening, Sarah had a rough outline of her app. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. She packed up her things and headed home, her mind buzzing with excitement and nerves. As she walked through the city, the lights of Pinnacle's headquarters glowed in the distance, a reminder of the challenge ahead. She wasn't just fighting for a job now. She was fighting for her place in a world that had tried to shut her out. The low, a shadow of doubt. When Sarah got home, James was already there, sitting on the couch with a book. He looked up and smiled, but his eyes were worried. "You okay, love?" he asked, setting the book down. "You've been quiet all day." Sarah forced a smile and sat next to him, kicking off her shoes. "It was a long day," she said, keeping her voice light. "The interview was tough, but I'm fine." James frowned, his hand reaching for hers. "Tough how? Did something happen?" Sarah's throat tightened. She wanted to tell him about the laughter, the insults, the way they'd made her feel small. But if she did, he'd know she'd been humiliated at his company. He'd feel guilty, or worse, he'd step in and make it all go away. And that's not what she wanted. She wanted to win this on her own. "Just nerves," she said, squeezing his hand. "I'll tell you about it later, okay? I'm working on something new now, a project." James's eyes lit up. "A project? Tell me more." Sarah laughed, grateful for his enthusiasm. "It's a surprise," she said, "but it's for Pinnacle. I'm entering their coding challenge." James's smile widened, but there was a flicker of something else in his eyes' concern. Maybe, or curiosity. "The innovation challenge? That's a big deal, Sarah. You sure you're up for it?" Sarah's heart sank a little. Did even James doubt her? She pushed the thought away and nodded. "I'm sure. I want to do this." James pulled her into a hug. "Then I know you'll kill it," he said. "You always do." But as Sarah hugged him back, the doubt lingered. What if she failed? What if her app wasn't good enough, and she embarrassed herself again? She pushed the thoughts down and focused on the fire inside her. She had 3 days to finish her project, and she wasn't going to let doubter Ms. Carter stop her. The twist, a hidden ally. The next morning, Sarah woke up early and headed back to the coffee shop, her laptop and notebook in tow. She spent the day coding, her fingers flying over the keys. Her app was coming together, a clean, simple design that let users organize tasks, set reminders, and share updates with their team. It wasn't groundbreaking, but it was useful, and Sarah knew Pinnacle's employees could use something like it. Around noon, the coffee shop door jingled, and Lila, the IT intern from Pinnacle, walked in. She spotted Sarah and grinned, waving. Hey, you're back in the world of the living. Sarah laughed, surprised. What are you doing here? Lila slid into the seat across from her, holding a coffee. This is my go-to spot when I need a break from Pinnacle's chaos. What about you? Still recovering from Carter's crew? Sarah hesitated, then decided to trust Lila. I'm working on something for the Innovation Challenge, she said, turning her laptop so Lila could see the screen. It's an app to help with task management. What do you think? Lila's eyes widened as she scanned the code. Whoa, this is good. You built this from scratch? Sarah nodded, her cheeks flushing. Yeah, I taught myself. Lila whistled. Okay, that's impressive. You know, I'm in IT, and I see a lot of code. This is solid. You've got a real shot at the challenge. Sarah's heart lifted. For the first time since the interview, she felt like maybe she wasn't crazy for trying. Thanks, she said. But I don't know if it's enough. The judges are probably like Ms. Carter. Lila's face darkened. Yeah, Carter's on the judging panel. But don't let that scare you. There's someone else you should know about. She leaned closer, her voice low. One of the judges is a wild card. Nobody knows much about them because they're new. But word is they're fair. They don't play favorites like Carter. If your app is good, they'll notice. Sarah's eyes widened. A fair judge? That was her chance. Who is it? She asked. Lila shook her head. No one knows their name yet. There's some big shot from the executive team, but they're keeping it quiet until the challenge. Just focus on making your app awesome, okay? You've got this. Sarah nodded, her mind racing. A mystery judge. A chance to prove herself. The spark of defiance inside her grew brighter. She wasn't just fighting Ms. Carter. Now, she was fighting for a spot in front of someone who might actually see her worth. The cliffhanger that night, Sarah worked late, her laptop glowing in the dark apartment. James was at a late meeting, so she had the place to herself. Her app was almost done, but she kept tweaking it, making it better, faster, cleaner. She was so close to something great, she could feel it. Then her phone buzzed. It was an email from Pinnacle Industries. Innovation Challenge Update. Finalists will present to the executive team, including the CEO, on Friday. Sarah's heart stopped. The CEO, James. If she made it to the finals, she'd be presenting to her own husband. Would he recognize her project? Would he figure out she was Sarah Miller, not Sarah Bennett? And what would happen if Miss Carter realized who she was before then? Sarah stared at the email, her hands frozen on the keyboard. The challenge was her chance to prove herself, but it was also a risk. If she won, the whole company would know her name. If she failed, Miss Carter's laughter would echo forever. And if James found out what had happened in that interview, the room felt smaller, the air heavier. Sarah's fingers hovered over her laptop. She was one step closer to her goal, but the stakes were higher than ever. What would happen when she stepped back into Pinnacle Industries? Would she rise, or would she fall? Around midnight, Sarah finally fixed the last bug. She ran the app, holding her breath as the screen loaded. The interface popped up clean, bright, and smooth. She clicked through every feature. Task lists, reminders, team sharing. It worked. It actually worked. A grin spread across her face, and she let out a quiet cheer, careful not to wake James, who was asleep in the next room. She leaned back in her chair, her heart racing with excitement. For the first time since the interview, she felt like she could do this. Her app wasn't flashy like something a big-shot programmer might make, but it was hers, built from scratch, with nothing but her own hard work. She imagined standing in front of the judges, showing them what she could do. She pictured Ms. Carter's smug face falling when she saw Sarah's name on the finalist list, but then her grin faded. What if she didn't make the list? What if her app wasn't good enough, and Ms. Carter got to laugh at her again? Sarah's hands tightened into fists. She wasn't going to let that happen. She opened her laptop again and started polishing her submission email, making sure every word was perfect. She attached her code, a demo video, and a short explanation of why her app mattered. This app helps teams work together, no matter who they are or where they come from, she wrote. It's simple, like me, but it gets the job done. She hit send at 2 a.m., her heart pounding. The confirmation popped up. Submission received. Finalists announced tomorrow at 9 a.m. Sarah stared at the screen, her body buzzing with nerves and hope. She'd done it. Now she just had to wait. The low. A surprise visitor. The next morning, Sarah woke to the smell of pancakes. James was in the kitchen, flipping them with a goofy grin. Big day, huh? He said, sliding a plate toward her. Challenge results come out soon. You ready? Sarah forced a smile, her stomach churning. Yeah, I hope so. She hadn't told James about the interview disaster, and she still wasn't ready to. But his cheerful mood made her feel guilty for keeping secrets. She poked at her pancakes, her appetite gone. You seem nervous, James said, sitting across from her. His eyes were soft but sharp, like he could see right through her. Anything you want to talk about? Sarah's heart skipped. Did he know something? Had someone at Pinnacle told him about the interview? She shook her head quickly. Just hoping my project's good enough, she said, keeping her voice light. It's a big deal, you know. James nodded, but his eyes lingered on her. You're amazing, Sarah. Whatever happens, I'm proud of you. His words warmed her, but they also stung. She wanted to make him proud, but she wanted to do it her way. She excused herself and headed to the coffee shop to wait for the results, needing space to think. The shop was quiet, just a few early customers sipping coffee. Sarah sat in her usual corner, her laptop open, refreshing her email every few seconds. Then the door jingled and Lila walked in, her face pale. Sarah, she called, hurrying over. I need to tell you something. Sarah's stomach dropped. What's wrong? Lila slid into the seat across from her, her voice low. I overheard Miss Carter talking in the break room this morning. She was bragging about how she's already picked her favorite for the challenge, a guy named Derek, from the senior dev team. She said his project's a lock to win, and she's making sure the other judges know it. Sarah's heart sank. But that's not fair. What about the mystery judge? Lila shook her head. Carter's got influence. She's been schmoozing the other judges all week. I don't know if the mystery judge can stand up to her. I thought you should know. Sarah felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. All her work, all her late nights, could it all be for nothing? If Miss Carter was rigging the challenge, what chance did Sarah have? She wanted to scream, to march back to Pinnacle and confront her. But she knew that wouldn't help. She needed to be smart. Thanks for telling me, Sarah said, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. I'm not giving up. Lila grinned, but it was shaky. Good, because I saw the finalist list on Carter's desk. Your name's on it. Sarah's eyes widened. What? You're in the top 5, Lila whispered. They're announcing it soon, but I saw it. You're presenting today, Sarah. You're going up against Derek and 3 others. Sarah's heart leaped, but fear followed close behind. She was a finalist. She'd made it. But now she had to face Ms. Carter again and present to James. The stakes were higher than ever, and Ms. Carter was playing dirty. The twist. A dangerous discovery, Sarah thanked Lila and rushed home to prepare. The presentation was at 2 p.m., giving her just a few hours to practice. She stood in front of her mirror, rehearsing her pitch, her voice shaking at first but growing stronger. She wasn't just fighting for herself now. She was fighting for everyone Ms. Carter had ever pushed down, everyone she'd laughed at or called a nobody. As she packed her laptop, her phone buzzed with a new email. It was from an unknown address with no name attached. The subject line read, "Be careful." Sarah frowned and opened it. The message was short. Carter's not what she seems. Check the server logs from last week. Good luck, S. Miller. Sarah's blood ran cold. Server logs? Who sent this? And why? She didn't have access to Pinnacle's servers, but the message felt like a warning and a clue. Was Miss Carter hiding something bigger than just rigging the challenge? Sarah's mind raced. She didn't have time to dig now, but the message stuck with her like a splinter. She grabbed her purse and headed to Pinnacle, her heart pounding. The glass headquarters loomed ahead, shining in the midday sun. Inside, the lobby was buzzing with people, some carrying laptops, others whispering about the challenge. Sarah felt like all eyes were on her, even though no one knew who she was. Yet. She took the elevator to the 10th floor, her stomach twisting as the doors opened. The same hallway, the same glass-walled conference room, but this time, she wasn't here to beg for a job. She was here to fight. She clutched her laptop, her app ready, her heart burning with defiance. The cliffhanger Sarah stepped into the conference room where the finalists were gathering. Miss Carter was already there, her sharp nails tapping the table, her eyes scanning the room. When she saw Sarah, her smile froze, then twisted into something cold and dangerous. "You again?" she said, her voice low but venomous. "What are you doing here?" Sarah lifted her chin. "I'm a finalist," she said, her voice steady. "I'm presenting my app, Ms." Carter's eyes narrowed, but before she could speak, the door opened again. A man walked in tall, with kind eyes and a familiar smile. James, the CEO, Sarah's husband. The room went silent, every head turning to him. Sarah's heart stopped. He didn't know she was here, didn't know she was a finalist, but he would soon. And then, Ms. Carter's voice cut through the silence, sharp as a blade. "Well, well, Mr. Bennett," she said, her eyes flicking to Sarah. "Looks like we've got a surprise today." Sarah's breath caught. Did Miss Carter know? Had she figured it out? Or was something else about to explode? Something tied to that mysterious email? The room felt like it was tilting, and Sarah gripped her laptop tighter. The presentation was about to begin, and everything was about to change.